सहस्राक्षं गणाधीशं स्वगुरुं च सरस्वतीं जनकं जनयित्रीं च शास्त्रादौ प्रणमाम्यहम्. Namaste. I welcome you all again to today's session under the series The Knowledge of Surgery in Ayurveda with special reference to its relevance in current times. Today we are in the fifth session, and today's session will be dealing with the description of microvasculature in Ayurveda, whether there are references for microvasculature in Ayurveda, and this will be discussed under the relevance of the anatomy and physiology of Mutravaha Srotas. So today's topic will be description of microvasculature in Ayurveda with special reference to anatomy and physiology of Mutravaha Srotas. Mutravaha Srotas is nothing but the urinary system that includes the kidney, ureter, and the bladder. So when we are looking up to the anatomy and physiology of various organs in our body or various systems in our body, usually the anatomy and physiology of the urinary system is said to be a very complex entity or a complex process that happens in the body with respect to the physiology. So today under this session, we will be looking into the concept of microvasculature and the Rachana Sharira, that is the anatomy and physiology of what Ayurveda tells with respect to the kidney, ureter, and bladder, that is the Mutravah Srotas, the same view according to modern anatomy and physiology, and finally concluding parallels between whether the microvasculature that has been described in the texts of Ayurveda can be closely understood with that of the modern anatomy. With respect to microvasculature, so in simple words, microvasculature is nothing but it is the system of tiny blood vessels. So we know that blood vessels, we have the veins, the arteries, the venules, capillaries, etc. So that which focuses or the entire system or a complex system of tiny blood vessels that also includes capillaries, venules, and arterioles that perfuse the body's tissues is what is known as microvasculature. So usually the microvasculature, it is an integral component to all tissues, and it is necessary for establishing and maintaining tissue health and function via the blood perfusion. So this microvasculature will mainly be doing the blood perfusion, and because of which there is a necessary harmony between the physio or between the cells of the tissues performing the respective physiology. So because of the perfusion, there is a dynamic interplay with the tissue cells and that of the environment. So because of microvasculature in any organ where there is a microvasculature anatomy there, so the microvasculature is capable of supporting effective perfusion, and it consists of properly arranged tree of thousands of vessel types, and there will be a regulatable blood flow pathway. So consisting of all of this is what we call as a microvasculature. So with respect to the anatomy of the KUB, that is the kidney, ureter, bladder, or simply the urinary system, this microvasculature is very complexly seen in our body, and the same is being highlighted in Ayurveda Samhitas also. So talking about the Rachana, that is the Sharir Rachana, and Sharir Kriya, that's the anatomy and physiology of the Mutravah Srotas. First we will look up to points that are being described in Ayurveda with respect to the Mutravah Srotas. Following later will we be seeing the microvasculature of the at the level of the kidneys. So in Ayurveda, mutra, that is to vaguely coin the term, if it is to be coined as the urinary or the urine that has been the main excreta of the urinary system. According to Ayurveda, Acharya Charaka opines or states that mutram malam. So it is one of the forms of mala. Mala is that which is being excreted out of the body. Acharya also says it is the byproduct of the digestion, that is ahara, So he also calls it as Annamala. Mutra Shakriti Annamalo, according to Acharya Vagbata in Ashtanga Hridaya. Acharya says Mutra and Shakra, that is the fecal matter, are the byproduct or the waste product that are generated as at the end of digestion. So this is with respect to the Nirukti of Mutra. Moving further, with respect to the Pramana of Mutra that has been told in Ayurveda. So Ayurveda opines the Pramana of Mutra, that is Mutrasya Prakrutam Pramanam Chatvari Anjalyah. In Ayurveda, whatever the measurable quantity or the Dravarupi dhatu in the body, they are measured with respect to the Anjali Pramana. So there are various mana or measurable entities, techniques that were followed in the olden days, and among them one was the Anjali Pramana. So what is Anjali? So we have the definition of Anjali saying that Anjalistu karadvaya milita samputakara prasiddha sa eva kudavaha ardhasharavakaha. So it is nothing but joining both the palms of both the hand together, making it look like a samputakara or the ardha sharava. Sharava is like a saucer. So when we join both our hands, the palmar surfaces, it looks like a ardha sharava, and that is nothing but one Anjali. So if it counts to the quantity that one Anjali can hold, so in a study, it was seen that in female, one Anjali accounts to, with respect to the one Anjali in a female, it is 100 ml, and the same when it is the male Anjali, it is 135 ml. So when it counts to 4 Anjali, it is 400 ml. So according to Ayurveda, if the Pramana of Mutra is Chatvari Anjali, then it counts to 400 ml of urine. So this is nothing but the quantity of urine per void. That is, if we have to see, according to a study, the normal bladder capacity, or we get the urge to void, is when the bladder capacity comes somewhere close to 300 cc. That is somewhere between 210 cc to 300 cc. And in amongst that, usually the first morning void volume comes close to 400 ml to 400 cc to 500 cc. So the same thing now, if we have to convert, so in male, 135 ml into 4 counts to somewhere around 540 ml. In female, 100 into 4, that is 4, because it is Chatvari Anjali, counts to 400 ml, wherein the range is between 400 to 540 ml of urine, which is nothing but the same quantity of urine that has been told now just before what we discussed. So this is the Pramana of Mutra that has been told in Ayurveda. Next, moving on to the concept of Srotas. So why Srotas is important is because any anatomical structure that we see, Srotas forms the main important entity of the same. Srotas is nothing but a tubular structure that allows the movement of the dravya within it. It might be dravya, or it might be vayu, or anything that is tubular, which gives with the space, accommodating the space within it, is nothing but Srotas. So Sravanat Srotamsi, Sravanaditi Rasadehe Poshyasya Sravanat. So this, in the same way, we have two varieties, that is the Sthula Srotas and the Sukshma Srotas. The Sthula Srotas, like for example, the Annavaha Srotas, if we can equate it to the esophagus. So it is a tubular structure that aids the movement of Anna Dravya. In the same way, these are Sthula Srotas that are visible to naked eye, but Acharyas also opine that there are Sukshma Srotas that are micro structures that still at the cellular level facilitate the movement of particles within it. So all of these forms, these Srotases form the complex structure of or a system. Like for example, cardiovascular system, it has many Srotas in it. The urinary system again has lot many srotas in it. So what are these srotas? We will be seeing it in further stage. So basically srotas is nothing but it is a ayana or it is a chalana marga, the pathway or the road for the movement of various particles in the body. That is what is called as srotas. So now moving on to Mutravaha Srotas. So here Mutravaha Srotas mainly is nothing but it deals with the complete system of the urinary excretion, that is the including from the kidney, ureter and the bladder. So in Ayurveda, we say that each and every Srotas, it has its origin from its Mula Sthana. So in the same way, according to Ayurveda, Mutravaha Srotas has its Mula, according to Acharya Charaka, it is the Basti and the Vankshana. According to Acharya Sushruta, it is the Basti and the Medra. So here, Basti referring to the urinary bladder. So this is with respect to the Mutravaha Srotas and its Mula. Now, talking about the various parts or various organs that comprise this Mutravaha Srotas could be Vrukka, they are the kidneys, Gavini, Gavini, we get to see the ureters, Mutravaha, Damani, Sira, and Nadi. So these are the complex structures, including the vascular system of the Mutravaha Srotas. Then we have the Basti, that is the urinary bladder, and the Mutra Prasevaka, that is the urethra through which the urine comes out of the body. So these are the correlations of all of these parts that comprise the Mutravaha Srotas as a whole. Moving to next to the explanation of Vrukka, that is how did we correlate Vrukka to the kidneys? So Vrukka, the pada dhatu, it goes to Vruk adane, that is it is to derive from or it is to Vruk vrishati also is another dhatu which means to rain or to drain. So in Ayurveda, like we study the embryological origin of every organ. In the same way, according to Ayurveda, Vrukka is the Matraja Bhava and it is made up of the Rakta, Meda, Dhatu, and it is coined as Vrukkau, which means that there are two in number. And according to Acharya Charaka, Sushruta and Bhagavata, they say that Vrukka has close relation with that of the Meda Dhatu, and that is why it is said that it is the Mula of the Medavaha Srotas. Just like how we saw the Mutravaha Srotas, there are many Srotas explained in Ayurveda, and the Mula of Medavaha Srotas is termed as Vrukka in Ayurveda. So suppose in a Medas, to coin crudely, it could be related to the fat, the entity in our body, that is the lipid entity in our body. So what is the relation between Vrukka and the lipid content? So why has Ayurveda chosen Vrukka as the Mula of Medavaha Srotas? If that has to be questioned and analyzed, then it could be that there is one entity that there's tremendous amount of fat which is present around the kidneys. That counts to the anatomical justification. On the other hand, if we see that the lipid metabolism at the level of PCT, that is the proximal convoluted tubules, that is one of the part of, it is one of the entities of the nephron, that is the unit of the kidney. So that plays a major role in maintaining the metabolism of lipid in other parts of the body. So that is why we could say that our acharyas have indirectly or thought about it and have given Vrukka as the Mula of Medavaha Srotas. Coming back now to the site of Vrukka. So they say that Vrukka is nothing but one among the Panchadasha Koshta Anga. So we had discussed the number of Koshtangas, that is the 15 Koshtanga, and Vrukka is one in that. And the number again, there is a Dvivachana saying Vrukkau, that is 2 in number. And according to all the Acharya, it is the Mula Sthana of Medavaha Srotas. So just now we discussed on why the Vrukka could be, not could be, why the Vrukka was named or it was considered to be the Mula Sthana of Medavaha Srotas. trying to analyze the link between the lipid metabolism and the kidneys. Next, moving on to the Gavini. So in Atharvana Veda, there is a reference for Gavini that says that Yada Antreshu Gavinyoho Yada Bastavadi Samshrita Evate Mutram. In Sayana Bhashya also, it says Antrebhyo Nirgatasya Mutrasya Mutrashaya Prapti Sadhane Pashvadvayaste Nadyav Gavinyau. According to Acharya Charaka, Mutravahinyau Nadinam Madhye Mutradharo. So all of these, especially the explanation of the Sayana Bhashya, it says that Antrebhyo Nirgatasya Mutrasya. So it is the exact explanation of the physiology of how the villi absorption happens from the intestine, and how the other part of the fluid, it moves towards the circulation. And then, so Acharya says, Antrebhyo nirgatasya mutrasya mutrashaya prapti sadhane. So mutrashaya is nothing but the bladder. So through the circulation, whatever enters into the vrukka, then through the process of a series of filtration, etc. So we have the mutra utpatti, that is the formation of the urine that reaches the urinary bladder through the ureter. So with this explanation, it is clearly understood that Gavini is nothing but the ureter that Acharyas are trying to explain by saying Antrebhyo nirgatasya mutrasya mutrashaya prapti sadhane Pashvadvayaste nadyav. Again, they are quoting that it is in the sides, that is the Parshva, and again there is a Dvivachana that is used as nadyav, indicating that there are two in number, which is exactly that the explanation of the two ureters, saying, giving us a strong explanation of how Gavini is nothing but the ureters. Next, moving to the Basti. So here, Basti, the dhatu here is Vas dhatu, which means that to dwell or to stay. So why it is called as Basti? It is that because whatever is the urine, it, as soon as there is continuous collection of urine that is into the bladder, as and when there is the utpatti from the kidneys, or when there is when it gets originated from, or it gets processed in the kidneys. Once it attains certain quantity or certain threshold, only then the person feels the urge to micturate, and there is the act of micturation. That is why it is called as Basti, because the urine is held for a while inside the Basti or the urinary bladder. So coming to the synonyms, there are many, that is Basti, Basti Putaka, Shira Basti, Basti Bila, etc. Mutrashaya, Maladhara, all of them is there. And coming to the origin, according to Ayurveda, just like the embryology, it is the Rakta plus Prasada Bhaga of Kapha and Pachyamana Pitta plus Vata. So crudely speaking, this could be how, this is the Ayurveda explanation of how every organ develops from the embryological state. So also according to Ayurveda, Basti is one of the Sadhya Pranahara Marma, and it is one among the Dasha Pranayatana. Explaining the same, Sadhya Pranahara Marma is one wherein Marma Sthanas have been explained in Ayurveda. When we were discussing it in the second session, we were looking into various, a brief explanation on the Marma, where they are vital points in our body where the prana dwells. That is, when they are injured, there could be a possibility of even acquiring death. So Mutrashaya or the Basti is one such organ wherein if there is a strong blow or a strong injury to the same, it could also prove fatal. That is what Acharyas are trying to quote here. With respect to the site of Basti, so here Acharya says, Basti is between the Stula Guda, Mushka, Sevani, Shukra, Mutravahini Nadinam Madhye, Mutrashayo, Ambuvahanam, Sarvasrotaha, Samudadi, Shivapaganam Pratishtita. So to the same, Acharya Chakrapani, he says that Tata Bastirapi Ambuvaha Srotasam Vishramasthanam. Ambavaha Srotas is nothing but the Vishramasthana, that is the Basti. It is the Vishramasthana for the Ambavaha Srotas, that is the Mutravaha Srotas. And he says, calling the word Ambuvaha Srotas, he says that no matter what are all the various secretions or the kleda utpatti in our body, which is let out from the Sharira, apart from the Sweda, that is the sweat, all the other secretions or the waste in the that is in the form of secretions or fluid in the body come out in the form of mutra, that is as the urine through the mutravaha srotas. So the anatomical location here is, it is between stula guda, that is the intestines, especially the large intestine. We have the mushka, the sevani, that is the raphe, and mushka and shukra, that is between the stula guda and between the external genitals. So it is somewhere in the space between these, that is these are nothing but the anatomical correlations or the associated organs that are nearby the urinary bladder, is what is being trying to be explained by Acharya Charaka as the sthana or the site of mutra of the urinary bladder, that is the basti. So thus now we know that this mutravaha srotas, just like how we understand the importance of urinary system in maintaining the fluid balance in the body, here with the one line saying udadhiriva apaganam cha pratishtita. So Acharya says that it simply means that it is reservoir for all secretions, just like a sea or an ocean. So this indicates that Acharyas somewhere with the following words, they are trying to explain it to us that it is the mutravaha srotas that has a close relation and a close link with the fluid balance in the human body. So again, talking about how the basti looks, excuse me, Acharya Sushruta explains the anatomical anatomical structure of the urinary bladder through the following shloka in the Nidhanasthana 3rd chapter. Acharya says, Nabi Prishta Kati Mushka Guda Vankshana Shefasam Ekadwara Tanustvak Madhye Bastihi Adomukah Bastihi Basti Shirashchaiva Paurusham Vrushanau Gudaha Ekasambandino Hyete Gudasti Vivarashraya Alabva Iva Rupena Sirasnayu Parigraha. So this is what Acharya explains of how the basti looks in the Nidhanasthana, trying to understand or analyze the shloka in the following way. So Acharya says, Nabhi Prishta Kati Mushka Guda Vankshana Shefasam, that is what we just saw about its anatomical situ. That is what are the correlating structures or organs that are in vicinity to the urinary bladder. Again, Acharya says, Ekadwara Tanustvakcha Madhye Bastihi Adomukaha. Ekadwara, that is the outlet of urine is one. Ekadwara, there is one opening, which is nothing but, or it can clearly be correlated to the urethral opening. Bastihi Adomukaha. With this, Acharya opines that the neck is downwards, whereas the wider end is in the upwards. So it is Adhomukha, or it is opening downwards, and the downward opening is one. Paurusham Vrushanau Gudaha. That is, these are nothing but the structures that are nearby the urinary bladder. Paurusha Granthi, nothing but the prostate gland, and Paurusham iti medram, that is the organs or the tissues comprising the genital area. Sira Snayu Parigraha. So in the next line, Acharya says, Ekadwara Tanustvak Madhya Basti Radomukaha Bastihi Basti Shirashchaiva Paurusham Vrushanau Gudaha Ekasambandino Hyete Gudasti Vivrashrayaha Alabva Iva Rupena Sirasnayu Parigraha. So here Acharya says that it is an organ that is being covered with a very thin layer covering, and also that it is that which has the structural support with the help of many snayu. Snayu is nothing but that which snayavo bandhanaha prokta, or that is the structural support, or that which helps the various ligaments that helps in supporting the urinary bladder, making it remain in its particular anatomical situ, is nothing but the snayu. So Acharya says it is this urinary bladder, which is in the shape of alabu, is made to occupy that particular anatomical site, and it is held so, and it is held so with the help of sira snayu parigraha, that is by the structural support by the various snayu, that is the various ligament. Alabu is nothing but the same bottle guard, which has an ovoid shape. So Acharya says it is like an inverted bottle guard, that is as it is shown in the picture. So it is adhomukha, and with the opening downwards. The bottle guard exactly looks, almost crudely looks like that of the anatomy of the urinary bladder. So that is how Acharya is trying to explain the shape and the appearance of the urinary bladder. Next, moving to Mutravaha Dhamani. So from now on, until now, we saw the explanation about the macroanatomy. So especially according to today's topic of today's session, that is on the explanation about microvasculature in Ayurveda. So it is from here on that we can appreciate it very nicely of how microvasculature has been told in the Ayurveda Samhitas. So with respect to Mutravaha Dhamani, so Acharya Dalhana, he comments on Sushruta Shloka saying that Mutravahinyau Moola Dhamanyau Dve Tacha Kha Abhuta Dashada Shatada Sahasradha Vibidhyante iti darshayan na aha sukshmatvat ityadi. So Acharya Dalhana says that the Mutravaha Dhamani, the main two Dhamani going to the Mutravaha Srotas is two. That it is tubular structure carrying the Raktadhatu within it. And he says that moving further on, there is differentiation of the same Mutravaha Dhamani into 10, Dashada, Shatada, hundreds, Sahasrada, thousands of divisions of the same Mutravaha Dhamani happens. And this Vibidhyante is nothing but the differentiation of the same. And he says that when it more than hundreds, thousands, when it starts differentiating, this particular differentiation is not visible to the naked eye because sukshmatvat ityadi. Sukshma is nothing but it is very tiny, that which is not appeared to the naked eye. It is a micro structure. So here we get to understand that Acharya is trying to point something out, which is microscopic in structure and that which is not visible to the naked eye. But definitely with the explanation, we can understand that it is nothing but a part of the anatomy of the Mutravaha Srotas, that which is microscopic in its structure. Now, Acharya Vagbhata on the same, he says, each Adodhamani will divide into 3 branches, and out of which 2 are concerned with the formation of Mutra. That is according to Ashtanga Sangraha. So in the Adhovaha Dhamanis, out of which he says the Adhoghami Dhamanis are, there are many, like how we saw in the second, there are 10, out of which there are 3, they divide into 3, out of which mainly 2 are considered with the transportation of the Mutra. So here the word, instead of transportation, it can be understood with the word that is with the process of the entire how the urine gets manufactured in the right from the kidneys to how it is transported and how it gets collected and excreted out of the human body. According to Acharya Sushruta, Acharya says, Mutram Bastim Abhiprapanne Mutravah Dve. So there are two structures or the two structures that does the vahana, that is the movement of mutra to the basti, and he says they are two. That is mutravahe dve is what Acharya is trying to say. So dhamanis, if we have to look, the crude translation is made to that of the arteries, but many times it is not limited to only the artery. Based on the anatomy and based on the function, the word is used. So in the text of Ayurveda, we have to correlate it to either the artery, or whether it could also be a neurovascular bundle, or it could also be a vein, based on the context and based on the description at which, with respect to what the word is being used in Ayurveda. That is the text of Ayurveda. Moving next to the Mutravaha Sira. So in the previous slide, we read about the Mutravaha Dhamani. The main quotation is from Acharya Dalhana's Tika on Acharya Sushrutas, where he says that the Mutravaha Dhamani splits into 10, hundreds and thousands, and this is not visible to naked eye since it is microscopic. Moving further on the explanation of Mutravaha Sira. So here, Sira is again not referring just to the venous system. This is also the same function of the Dhamani. But Acharya Bhava Mishra opines that, or though he is giving the functional aspect of it remains the same as Dhamani, Acharya Bhava Mishra coins it as Mutravaha Sira. Saying so, Acharya says that एवं विपक्वस्य आहारस्य सारो निगदितो रसः शेषो ग्रहणीस्तो मलद्रवस्य जलभागः सिराभिः बस्तीनीतो मूत्रम अभिभवति. So Acharya says once the ahara is being consumed, so the sarabhaga is further pushed further on for the metabolism, wherein from which we get the sarabhaga and the kittabhaga. Kittabhaga is the waste, out of which the jalarupi mala, that is that mala or the unwanted material which is in the liquid form. So he says once it is subjected to various process in the grahani, that is at the level of the duodenum and further the other parts of the intestine, the maladrava, okay, so the maladrava jalabhaga, that is the liquid portion of the, that is the jalabhaga of the maladrava, through the siras, he says it comes to the basti and it comes out in the form as the form of mutra, is what Acharya Bhava Mishra tries to explain the process of formation of mutra and the process of excretion of mutra in the human body. With respect to the mutra prasevaka, so here mutra prasevaka, we read it as to be that of the urethra, which is the end part of the urinary system through which the urine flows out of the body. So the mutra prasevaka in Ayurveda is explained as bahirmukha sroto visheshaha, paurusham iti mutra prasevaka, paurusham iti medram. So all of these here, few words are told as linga suchaka padas. So this clearly indicates that mutra prasevaka is nothing but the exit, that is bahirmukha srota vishesha. So he says that it is that which opens to the outside environment, that is bahirmukha. And here with respect to the urinary system, the mutra srotas, it clearly indicates that mutra prasevaka is nothing but the urethral opening of the urinary system. So this was with respect to the anatomy of the urinary system. Now coming to the physiology of exactly how acharyas opine on the formation of mutra and its excretion from the human body. So the first reference from Sushruta Sutra is Acharya says it is because of the action of Pachaka Pitta, that is when it is subjected, when the food, whatever is taken or whatever is eaten or it is drunk, once it moves through the stomach through the duodenum, whatever happens to the further process of digestion that ends up in the formation of the absorption of the nutrients and then separation of the waste and then pushing further towards the until the process of excretion is what is being explained in this particular shloka, saying tacha तच्चादृष्ट हेतुकेन विशेषेण पक्वामाशय मध्यस्थं पित्तं चतुर्विधम् अन्नपानं पचति विवेचयति च दोषरसमूत्रपुरीषाणि तत्रस्थमेव च आत्मशक्त्या शेषाणां पित्तस्थानानां शरीरस्य च अग्निकर्मणाम् अनुग्रहं करोति तस्मिन् पित्ते पाचको अग्निरिति. So this reference is when Acharya is trying to explain the functions of Pachakagni. So we have 5 types of pitta that has been explained in Ayurveda Samhitas, and each of these type of pitta has its own karma in the that it shows or exhibits in the human body. So Acharya says one of the main entity that is responsible for the formation of all these waste is it starts at the level of Pachaka Pitta. That is the ingested matter is subjected to the process of digestion. That is when it comes in samparka to the Jataragni. That is that particular entity, that is the Pachaka Pitta, which helps in the digestion of food material. So it is this Pachaka Pitta that helps to digest all the Chaturvida Annapana, what the Vedas and also what the Ayurveda opines, that whatever we eat or drink, it comes into 4. That is Ashita, Khadita, Pita, and Lida. So these are the 4 varieties of based on the consistency of the variety of food we take. It's a 4 varieties, and all of these are subjected to the process of digestion with the help of Pachaka Pitta. After the process of digestion, when the separation of the Ahara Bhaga and the Kitta Bhaga happens, that is the waste happens. So then he says that these waste are excreted again further through the various parts of the body. So the main first entity to act upon is the Pachaka Pitta. Coming to the Mutra Nirmana, that is explained by Acharya Sushruta. Now, this is more with respect to the anatomical explanation of what he has given in the same chapter. So with respect to the anatomical location, Acharya here in this shloka, he tries to explain the formation and process of formation of urine at the level of the urinary system, that is at the level of the kidneys, how the Mutra Nirmana happens. So here Acharya says, Mutrashayo Maladharaha Pranayatanam Uttamam Pakvashaya Gatastatra Nadyo Mutravahastu Yaha Tarpayanti Sada Mutram Sarati Sagaram Yatha Sukshmatvat Na Upalabhyanti Mukhanyasam Sahasrashaha Nadibihi Upanitasya मूत्रस्य आमाशयान्तरात् जाग्रतः स्वपतश्चैव स निस्यन्द्यन्ते पूर्यते आमुखात् सलिले न्यस्तः पार्श्वेभ्यः पूर्यते नव घटो यथा तथा विद्धि बस्ति मूत्रेण पूर्यते. So this is one of the very important shloka Acharya explains on the physiology of formation of the mutra. So this one shloka completely explains the complete physiology that is a part of the urinary system and in the process of formation of urine at the level of kidneys. So trying to break this particular shloka and trying to understand it line by line. So in the first line we have Mutrashayo Maladharaha Pranayatanam Uttamam. So Mutrashaya, Maladhara, it is nothing but the paryaya, that is the synonyms Acharya is trying to give to the basti. Mutrasya Ashaya. Ashaya is nothing but the house or the storehouse or where we take, it could be called as the nest. So it is Mutrashaya, Maladhara, that is the paryaya, Pranayatanam Uttamam. So as we discussed earlier, it is one of the Dasha Pranayatana and it is also one of the Sadhya Pranahara Marma, wherein the prana resides. That is, a strong injury to this organ could even prove fatal in the human body. So that is why it is called as Pranayatanam Uttamam. In the next line, Acharya says, Pakvashaya Gatastatra. So here we can understand that the Malatrava from the Pakvashaya, so after it is subjected to Pachana, at the level of, in the previous shloka we saw that with the samparka of the Pachakagni. So that Ahara Rasa is brought towards the Ambuvaha Srotas, because Ambuvaha Srotas is nothing but, we know, it is the Vishramasthana. As we saw in the previous slide, it is the reservoir for all the excretions, that is the Dravarupi Mala. Keeping this in mind, the function of large intestine is to simply understand what Acharya was trying to explain in this particular line. So we know that the function of large intestine, it is to absorb water from the remaining indigestible food matter, and that is it transmits the useless waste material from the body. That is one of the main functions of the large intestine. That is what is being trying to be explained by Acharya Sushruta also here, but in one word, saying that pakvashaya gatastatra. So all of those absorbed absorbed water that is being through the large intestine after the process of digestion is now being moved towards the Mutravaha Srotas. And his Acharya says how it moves is that Nadyo Mutravahastu Yaha. So here it is, we can consider that since the word Nadi is used, so usually this word Nadi is being confused and and being equated to that of the ureter, that is the Gavini, what we saw in the previous slides. But here, Nadi is not being referred to the ureter, but Acharya says that according to the Tika, when we read the Tika, Acharya says, Mutravaha Nadi, Mutravaha Damanihi Dvau. So here, now we know that from the large intestine, whatever is the secretions that are being moved through the large intestine, now further, he says, Nadyav Mutravahastu Yaha. So from large intestine, the next location Acharya is trying to say is with respect to Mutravaha Dhamani, that is the two main blood vessels that is being going into the Vrukka, that is the first part of the Mutravaha Srotas, that is the Vrukka, which carries all of these secretions, that is the byproduct of digestion from the large intestine, and it is now moving into the Nadi, that is the Vrukka, through the Mutravaha Dhamani for the further process in the Mutravaha Srotas. So going back to the previous explanation, remembering the same, Acharya Dalhana said that these two Dhamani further splits or differentiates into Dashada, Shatada, and Sahasrada. So whether that happens or whether it doesn't happen, whether that is just a vague explanation given, will be that is what is the ultimate aim of this current session, of understanding that level of microvasculature, whether it is in par with the modern anatomy. The next line says, Tarpayanti Sadamutram Sarati Sagaram Tata. So here from the Dhamani, he says, so the next part from the Dhamani, now we have come up to the level of the blood vessels that are moving into the kidneys for the process or further process of urine. So in the next line, Acharya says, Tarpayanti Sadamutram Sarati Sagaram Yatha. So that means that from these dhamanis, that is the last checkpoint, there is tarpana, that is letting out of urine continuously as drops. Sarati Sagaram Yatha. So if we have to comment on the word that Acharya has used, tarpana. So even in our Vedic rituals, Tarpana is one of the famous karya that we do, or it is a part of various, a small part of it that incorporates in various kinds of pujas. So Tarpana is nothing but, so a small quantity of water is taken in the palm and it is let down. While giving Tarpana, it doesn't indicate that large quantity of water is being put out or it is being given out. Tarpana refers to something that is being given in very small quantity. So with this, we can understand that why Acharya has told Tarpana is that small quantity of urine is being continuously manufactured or processed in the kidneys, and that every drop comes and keeps on collecting in the urinary bladder through the ureter. And maybe that is why Acharya is trying to explain it by using the word tarpana, and adjoining it with two words, tarpayanti sadamutram sarati sagaram tata. So there is continuous movement of small quantity of urine that is being processed at the level of kidneys, that is being moved towards the mutrashaya, that is the basti, or that is the urinary bladder. So Acharya says again, so suppose we have to correlate this to two things. One is that there is continuous formation of urine. If we while we next look into the anatomical aspect, according to the modern anatomy, we can understand these structures. So in the kidney, the unit of an, that is the nephron, so we have many collecting ducts. There are thousands of collecting ducts in one kidney. There are millions of nephrons, and each of these nephron has the collecting duct. So there are, and from that there are other collecting ducts that forms the entire at the level of the renal cortex and the medulla. We will precisely understand it with the pictures when we move to the further slides. So there are thousands of collecting ducts that are continuously collecting these small quantity of urine that has been processed at the level of kidneys, just like a sagara, sarati sagaram tata. So that is, maybe that is why Acharya has used the word tarpana and sarati sagaram tata. So this movement is from the ureter to the bladder. Another meaning of why Acharya has used the word sarati sagaram yata, like the waves of the sea, that why Acharya could have used that word is that we can understand it by the urine droplets that are formed continuously by the kidneys. They do not directly end up in the urinary bladder. There is continuous peristaltic movement, just like the waves of the uterine wall, through which the droplets of urine that is being collected through the collecting tubes comes to the ureter, and through this peristaltic wave like motion, it goes and it reaches the urinary bladder. To maybe with this one line, Acharya is trying to explain all of this that is happening at the level of kidneys and the ureter, which are really microscopic and is not visible or appreciated by the naked eye. The next line, Sukshmatvat na upalabhyante mukhanyasam sahasrashah. Again, Acharya is definite with respect to this entire complex procedure, and that is why he's trying to say it with the in the next line, that all of these are not visible to naked eye. The formation, the sada tarpana, or letting out of the mutra from the collecting tube, neither of these are visible to the naked eye because they are very, very minute. Sukshmatvatna upalabhyante mukhanyasam sahasrashah. Also, thinking with respect to the peristaltic movement. So there are peristaltic waves. So the modern anatomy and physiology opines that there are around 1 to 5 waves per minute, and it is continuous process, and it is not felt until an obstruction is there in the pathway. So when there is clear srotas, that is, there is no obstruction in the urinary system, this particular wave that happens like 1 to 5 in 1 minute is not felt in the body until and unless there is an obstruction. And this is a continuous process which happens without any pause. That is why maybe again Acharya has told tarpayanti sada mutram, sada referring to it is a continuous physiology that happens in the body. Mutram sarati sagaram yatha, just like following the peristaltic wave of the uterine wall. And since it is so micro or so it happens at the level of microanatomy, and it is at the level of the deepest physiology, this is not something that is visible to the naked eye, or it is not something that is felt as it. Sukshmatvat na upalabhyante. In the next line, Acharya, in the next word, Acharya says, Mukhanyasam sahasrashah. So one is, here Sahasrashah, he says that there are thousands of such entities that are involved here. Maybe Acharya is referring to the thousands of millions of nephrons. Each of these have the collecting tubules. Each of these are involved in the participation of formation of urine, and they are not available or visibly, they are not visible to the naked eye. So in the next line, Acharya says, Nadi bihi upanitasya mutrasya amashayantarat. So here we can understand that this nadi is Acharya is what is referring to the ureters. So these are the ureter through which the mutravaha, these are the mutravaha nadis through which the mutrasya amashayantarat. So the tika here he says that amashayantarat iti amapakvashayantarat sa bastihi. So now Acharya says, so with this above process of sada tarpana sarati sagaram tata, that is the peristaltic wave, the mutra that is formed there through the nadi, that is the ureter, it comes and fills the mutrasya amashayantarat. According to the tika, it is nothing but the basti. Basti is nothing but the urinary bladder, that is the large storehouse or the reservoir of urine. So through the ureter, now the urine has come to the urinary bladder. Mutrasya amashayantarat. Jagratah swapataschaiva sa nisyandate puryate. So again, Acharya is telling this is not something that happens only when the person is in a wakeful state. It is an involuntary function. It's a part of the physiology that happens even when the person is awake, also when the person is sleeping. This is a continuous process of how there is purana into the basti. Nisyandane puryate. Amukhat salile nyastaha parshvebhyah puryate navaha gato yata tata viddihi basti mutrena puryate. So here again we could understand that he is giving a simile of how the urinary bladder fills through, just like how the newly made pot, when it is put upside down into the water, how the water collects into the bladder through the surface of it. Acharya is saying in the same way, considering that the basti looks like the ghata which is placed upside down, that the simile he is already given, like alabu iva rupena. Even alabu, inverted alabu, looks like a pot. Amukhat salile nyastaha parshvebhyah puryate navaha. So parshvebhyah, again we can understand that Acharya is trying to give the anatomical insertion of the ureters that happens at the lateral posterior surface of the urinary bladder. So through the parshva, that is, there is continuous purana of the mutra that has been processed until then. That is the mutra nirmana that has happened until the level of mutravaha nadi, that is until the ureter. That which comes to the ureter pierces at the parshva bhaga of the basti, and that is how the basti keeps on filling with the freshly formed urine as and when it passes through the ureter. And when the threshold is attained, so it is then that the person feels the urge to micturate. So this is with respect to the mutra nirmana, the physiology of formation of urine, incorporating the microanatomy and the microphysiology, both of them, that has been clearly mentioned by Acharya Sushruta with respect to the formation of mutra. So these are the same. The same opinion has been also given by Acharya Bhava Mishra, and the mutrasya gunakarma also is there. That is what are the functions of the mutra. Everything have also been explained by Acharyas in Ayurveda. So now moving quickly into the anatomy and physiology of the urinary bladder according to the modern anatomy. How do we understand this? And now how do we at the end closely correlate the microanatomy, the microvasculature that is being told with respect to the urinary system? So the urinary system, it mainly comprises of the two kidneys. So that is the right kidney and the left kidney. So if we see, the right kidney is a little lower than the left, and that is because of the presence of the liver in the right side. So at the top of in the right side there is liver, that is why. So there is a little depression, or it's not a depression, it is lowerly placed than compared to the left kidney. So both of these two kidneys, they are connected to the urinary bladder. So they are connected to the urinary bladder through the ureters, which are two in number. Coming to the urinary bladder, it is a pelvic organ, and once it starts filling, it expands upwards and it becomes an abdominal organ. So it has a tendency of, it's an expandable, it has an expandable musculature. That is why we are able to hold the urine until it reaches certain volume, and only then we feel the necessary to void. So the two ureters, so they pass behind and go near the base of the bladder, and it pierces the bladder at the posterior surface. So the urine that is produced by the kidneys here, it passes down through the bladder by peristaltic movement in the ureter, and that works. This works again against gravity actually by peristalsis movement. So it comes and it collects into the urinary bladder. So from the urinary bladder, we have the urethra through which the urine urine moves out of the human body. So this is nothing but the vrukka. We have the Gavini, that is the Mutravaha Nadi, the Basti, and the Mutra Prasevaka. So here we can see the Mutravaha Dhamani, what was explained. So again, with respect to what we saw now, Acharya, what he has explained in the formation of Mutra. So whatever is formed at the level of the Vrukka, so that it is continuously poured down to the Basti through, that is Tarpana. Tarpayanti yada sadamutram sarati sagaram yata. So that is the simile given. It might be referring to the peristaltic movement through the ureter coming and filling up the urinary bladder. So here we can appreciate that. So the kidney is surrounded by something called as the renal capsule. So this is the renal capsule. And next to the renal capsule, there is a fibrous tissue. And it is very, very thin layer of fibrous tissue, and maybe about just 2 mm in thickness. It is proteinaceous and it encapsulates the kidney. So this is very, very rich in pain receptors. We call it as nociceptors. And it is for this reason that the renal pain, what we call as the renal colic, it is very, very painful. It is because of this reason, because it has rich supply of nociceptors, that is pain receptors in the around it. Coming to the with respect to the renal capsule, so above the renal capsule, so there is a layer of perinephric fat. So it is a thick layer of fat that protects the kidney. So we also saw the anatomical justification of why acharyas of Ayurveda have quoted the Moolasthana of Mero Vahasrotas to be Vrukka. So this is again one of the anatomical justification of the same. So after above the perinephric fat, so above the perinephric fat, we have another thin layer which is called as the renal fascia, and this separates the tissue of the kidney from the tissue of the adrenal gland. So we have something above the kidney. We have the small gland above both of them, and they are called as the adrenal glands, and it is the renal capsule that separates them from the same. So if we take a section of the kidney, we find 3 layers of it. So we have the outer cortex. So this is the cortex layer. We have the middle medulla and the inner parenchyma. So the outer cortex and the medulla put together, it is called as the renal parenchyma. Sorry, inner pelvis. Outer cortex, middle medulla, and the inner pelvis. Cortex and medulla together are called as the renal parenchyma. So whatever is the urine that collects in the renal pelvis, that is at this portion, they move down to the ureter. So from the renal pelvis, whatever is the urine that is produced at this area, it comes to the pelvis, renal pelvis area. From the pelviceal area, it moves towards the ureter, and from the ureter, it moves next to the urinary bladder. So the next thing is that so this is the explanation what we saw till now. So now the most important part, that is the renal medulla. So in the renal medulla, that is the middle layer, so it is arranged in a series of something called something that is in the pyramidal shape. So what we see here in the triangular or in the shape of a pyramid, so we such pyramids are present at in the renal medulla. So there are around 8 to 10 pyramids that are present per kidney. So usually approximately it is 8 that is present. And in the cross section, we see that if we take a cross section of the same, we see that it is triangular in shape. That is, the widened base is present at the top and the apex is facing the pelvis. So this is the pelviceal area and the apex is facing down towards the pelvis. So the outer part, what we saw now is that is the cortex. So now we have the cortex and the cortex projects down towards the pyramid. So what we can see here is this outer part cortex is moving between each of these pyramids too. That is something which is called as the cortical column in modern anatomy. Now moving towards how the urine is produced exactly at this process that this region of renal medulla is that. So urine is produced in the renal parenchyma. So we know that parenchyma is nothing but the cortex and the medulla put together. It is called as the renal parenchyma. So in the renal parenchyma, we have what is called as the collecting ducts. And the collecting ducts, it runs all the way down from the pyramid to open in at the apex of the pyramid. So we have the pyramid here. Sorry. So we have the pyramid here. So the striations, what we see here, they are nothing but the collecting tubules. So this collecting duct, it comes down and it opens at the level of the apex of the renal pyramid. So many such collecting ducts gives the appearance, gives the striated appearance to the pyramid actually. The collecting duct now opens into a large papillary duct at the apex. So at the apex, we have something called as the papillary duct. So this collecting duct will come and open into the papillary duct. This papillary duct will now next open into the minor calyx, that is this, next into the major calyx, and then into the pelviceal region. So this is the pelvis, minor calyx, major calyx, to the pelvis and to the ureter. So now when we move back in understanding of the process, so Acharya, after explaining at the level of the Mutravaha Dhamani, he says from the intestinal level, that is from the level of Pakvashaya, whatever comes next through the Mutravaha Dhamanis, it enters inside. And he says the next thing what he says is Tarpayanti Sada Mutram Sarati Sagaram Tata. So this Tarpana happens at all of these levels. That is at the level of nephrons, which are microscopic. From there, the process happens, various absorptions and excretions happen, reabsorption happens, and then whatever is the urine that is being made, it moves through the collecting duct into the papillary duct, minor calyx, major calyx, and comes to the ureter. So this process of tarpana, it is continuous. Sada tarpana, tarpayanti, that is at every step there is letting out of small quantity of urine towards the next part of the anatomy. So this is with respect to the renal medulla. So the next important thing with respect to the microvasculature, which is the highlight of today's session, in knowing the knowledge of Ayurveda acharyas about microvasculatures thousands of years ago, is how we can appreciate considering the blood supply of the kidneys. So according to modern anatomy, so here with respect to the kidneys, there is an intricate arrangement of the arterial and venous supply around the kidneys, and that forms a complex vascular supply to the kidneys. So in the right side, we have to the left side, we have the abdominal part of the aorta. This. It is the abdominal part of the aorta. To the right, it is nothing but we have the IVC. So with respect to how the blood vasculature is being designed at the level of kidneys. So first, now we have the abdominal part of the aorta, through which we have the renal arteries, two renal arteries that are moving towards both of these kidneys. So here in the next picture, that is a diagrammatic representation of the same. So this is the right side branch of the renal artery, the left side, considering this, understanding the vasculature with respect to the right kidney, we have the right renal artery that is coming. So this artery moves further, and here at the level of the pelvis, it is called as the segmental artery. So this segmental artery now splits again and it moves between lobes. So this triangular pyramid, if we consider this one part as the lobe, so we have the artery that is moving between each of these pyramid, and that is why it is called as interlobar artery. So this interlobar artery further moves up and it follows the base of the pyramid. So it comes as an arc. That is why this layer is called as arcuate artery. So we have the renal artery, segmental artery, interlobar artery, and the arcuate artery. So from the arcuate artery, we have multiple branches that further comes out of the arcuate artery, and these are called as interlobular artery. So from the interlobular artery, what we see to the sides, we have multiple individual afferent arterioles, and this individual afferent arterioles, they go and end up in a glomerular capillary network. So when we in the further slides, when we try to understand the structure of the renal corpuscle, so what is that which is called as the unit of kidney, that is the nephron. So it has the Bowman's capsule and it has the glomerular apparatus, and this entire apparatus, the entire process of formation of the urine happens in this very, very tiny structure that is not visible to the naked eye. And the two main important structures of this renal corpuscle is these two, that is the afferent arteriole and that which is the efferent arteriole. This efferent arteriole that is going inside the renal corpuscle, that is the nephron, is nothing but these micro arterioles that are coming out of the interlobular artery. Moving, each of these are going into each of the nephron. These black dots here, they represent the glomerular capillary network, that is the nephron, the individual unit. Now nephron is nothing but the functional unit of kidney. It is nephron where in which the urine is processed, in which the urine is formation happens. That simple nephron has a complex structure again of all of this. That is, it has a afferent arteriole, it has a Bowman's capsule, it has a proximal convoluted tubule. Coming down, it has a descending limb of the Henle's loop. This U-shaped loop is called as the Henle's loop. Then it has a collection duct, distal convoluted tubule. That distal convoluted tubule is going and connecting to the collecting duct. Now, these collecting duct is nothing but what we saw at the level of when we were understanding the structure of the pyramid. These striations are nothing but the collection of all of these collecting ducts. So there are many such collecting ducts that are there at the level of the cortex in the renal parenchymal region, and many each of these. So they are coming through the efferent arteriole. So we have the renal artery coming and getting divided. What we saw here, the renal artery is getting divided up to the level of the micro arterial level that is going into the glomerular capillary apparatus, which is nothing but this particular arteriole. So the blood comes here, and then in the glomerular apparatus, in the proximal convoluted tubule, a series of process happens at level of this, and it is microphysiology that it is not available or it is not visible to the naked eye. We cannot see it, all of these process happening at the level of the naked eye. All of these are microscopic. Series of physiology happens here. Here the discussion of the same could be irrelevant, because the aim of the session is to only understand whether this microanatomy, microphysiology, and microvasculature was known to the acharyas of Ayurveda or not, whether such explanations are told in the text of Ayurveda or not. So not going in deeply into the physiology of this particular part. So this efferent arteriole is nothing but what is going here at the level of all of these black dots. So it ends into the this efferent arteriole ends into the nephron, that is this glomerular apparatus here, and here absorption takes place, exchange of salts takes place, and at the end of it here, when it comes to the collecting duct, a drop of urine is formed, and that urine goes all the way into the collecting duct, and from the collecting duct, as we saw in the previous slide, so from the collecting duct here, it moves into the papillary duct, it moves into the minor calyx, it moves into the major calyx, and from there it moves into the ureter here. So this is with respect to how the complex process of urine formation happens, how the complex process of urine formation happens at the microscopic level, that none of these can never be appreciated without the use of microscopes and electron microscope. Now we know that when we understand all of this, now we know why Acharya has used the word tarpana. Tarpanam sarati sagaram yata. So there is tarpana, that is letting out of small quantity of urine only, small quantity of the liquid only, of the that is the urine droplet at each of these levels. And this happens at all the levels. It is a continuous process, no matter whether the person is awake or asleep. This process keeps on happening. The collection of urine at the collecting tube keeps happening. From there on, it moves. And at the level of ureter, we know that there is ureteric peristaltic movement that happens at the frequency of 3 to 5 per minute. That is sarati sagaram yatha, and it further moves and gets collected in the mutrashaya, that is the urinary bladder. So with this, it is clear-cut evidence that Acharya Sushruta at that time, thousands of years ago, had completely understood the microphysiology, that complex physiology that happens at the level of the urinary system, even at the level of the nephrons of the kidney, wherein these nephrons are functional unit of the kidney. There are around 1 million of them. They are very, very tiny structures and not visible to naked eye. So we have the Bowman's capsule, glomerular capillary, and which consist of the renal corpuscle, what we looked into the picture right now. So this is an evidence of the microphysiology, that was the physiology at the level of the microanatomy that was understood by our acharyas. Now, whether this complex division or the complex intricate design of blood vessel around the intricate arrangement of blood vessel around the kidneys, around the pyramids, was understood by acharyas or not, this is when we have to go back to the previous shloka of where Acharya Dalhana had quoted on the Mutravaha Dhamani. So there Acharya had quoted with respect to Mutravaha Dhamani that he said, Mutravahinyo Mooladhamanyo Dve Tachaka Abhuta Dashada Shatada Sahasrada Vividyante iti Darshayannaha Sukshmatvat Ityadi. This is a clear-cut explanation of nothing but Mutravaha Dhamanyo Dve, that is, there are two renal arteries that moving further splits into Dashada, Shatada, Sahasrada. We know that there are 8 pyramids, so we could consider this part as one lobule. So here coming the renal artery, it divides into many branches of segmental artery, which further moves. We know that we have 8 pyramids approximately in one person, in one kidney. So suppose if it is dividing to each lobe, then it is somewhere accounts to around 8 to 10 between each of these, so 10 to 20s. So Dashada, this next moving further on, separates to Shatada. So these interlobular arteries are many in number that branches out from the arcuate artery. And the last word Acharya opines is Sahasrada. Sahasrada is now here is nothing but the thousands of afferent arterioles that are moving into millions of these nephrons. So each of these nephron will be getting a afferent arteriole, which opines that there are millions of branches that are coming out of the interlobular artery, which is a branch of the arcuate artery, which clearly is being indicated and stated according to the shloka that Mutravahinyo Moola Dhamanyo. Moola he uses again, that is, they are the main arteries, that is Moola Dhamani, which are nothing but the two renal arteries that are splitting into Dashada, Shatada, and Sahasrada. So with this, we can clearly understand that our acharyas of the ancient times, they not just understood, they have not just given the text of Ayurveda focusing on various symptoms of various diseases, trying to pacify the symptomatology or trying to give a treatment methodology for any disease. It is a clear-cut indication, and it is a these are clear-cut evidences that to say that acharyas, though at those times it is very much evident that none of the sophisticated instruments were available, they were able to analyze this sharira not only at the level of the physical entities that are visible to naked eye. They had complete analysis of this human body, even moving further beyond the pratyaksha sharira with the help of the Jnana Chakshu. And it is only possible with this amount of Jnana and with this amount of wisdom that such documentations are present, and it still is it still survives it has survived through various decades. And we can, with these indications and references, we can understand that the acharyas of ancient time, they definitely knew the human body, and they had understood the human body up to the level of microvasculature. And understanding this with respect to the urinary system was one such small effort put up to make an analysis of the understanding of microvasculature by our acharyas and trying to draw parallels among the same. So with this, here in the picture, if we can say, so this is the unit of the renal corpuscle with the afferent arteriole, the complete the glomerular apparatus, and the afferent arteriole, which is nothing but the vasculature what we saw until now, that which was explained by Acharya Dalhana, which was explained by Acharya Sushrutas with the Acharya's Dalhana's commentary. So coming to the end of today's session, so this was a small effort put down to understand the anatomy of urinary system, to try to understand the anatomy and the physiology at the micro level, and trying to draw parallels between the explanations of the same. With the end of the presentation is how we could beautifully understand that there is very close similarity between both of them. The only difference is that in modern anatomy, with the use of various instruments, we are able to analyze and separate every anatomical entity that we encounter inside the human body, and each of them are named. But it doesn't mean that all of these anatomical structures were not noticed or were not known by the ancient Ayurveda acharyas. If they would have had not known all of these microstructures or microanatomy, or understood the body at this level, or with such depth of knowledge of anatomy and physiology, there could never be a chance of documenting all of this with such beautiful similes, such intricate shlokas, using such apt words or shabdas, trying to explain the entire process of the human body. So that is why Acharya Sushruta says that pratyaksham hi anpam, analpam aprathyaksham asti. So that is why every medical student, it is important for him to analyze this human body, it is moving farther, far away from the Pratyaksha Sharira. That is, it is not just the physical entity what we have to analyze. This Sharira has to be analyzed up to the level of the Sattva, Atma, and Indriya. And it is only then that the complete Prayojana of the Ayurveda Shastra, that is the Arogya Prapti, could be gained. So having said so, I would like to end today's session with this shloka. Namami dhanvantarim adidevam surasurair vandita padapadmam loke jararubhayam mrityunasham dataramisham vividaushadhina. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.